Inspired by the recent way Venerable Robina Courtin is opening with prayers, we're going to make, I guess, in a sense, what this is a uh, reflective, what they would call an analytical meditation on the prayers, rather than just simply reciting the prayers. We're going to just say them with this, we're going to think through. So it's sort of a guided reflection or a meditation, analytical meditation. So first I'll begin by imagining yourself surrounded by sentient beings in every realm. So generate that visualization for yourself that you are completely surrounded, as you are, by sentient beings in every realm of every kind. And for those unenlightened beings, they are experiencing every type of discomfort that there is out there in the sea of samsara. And you've decided to become a benefit to them and ultimately to lead them to liberation and ultimately enlightenment. And so that's your bodhicitta motivation. You're surrounded by the sentient beings, you see the suffering and the hardships, and you recognize that you, somewhere in your heart of hearts, you have the capacity to expand and grow your own capability so that you can lift yourself out of this um, samsara suffering, and subsequently lift others out as well through your example and teaching. This is the bodhicitta motivation. Then similarly, surrounding you, never forget that there are enlightened beings everywhere, and visualize primarily those enlightened beings in front of yourself. And filled with this heart of bodhicitta, this heart filled with the wish to be of real benefit, look upon the enlightened beings in front of you and sincerely request their instruction. How can I train so that I become an effective source of liberation and enlightenment? Show me how the training goes. What is the training? And feel the sincere wish to actually not only get the instructions, have them given to you, but that indeed you will put those instructions into practice. This is full refuge. Not only will you request for the guidance and the inspiration, but you will take the guidance on board, actualize it through your own analysis of what is being suggested by these teachers, what is being conveyed, the philosophical material that we study and the mantras that we're told to say, that we're advised, all these things together. This is what we are taking refuge in, these array of remedies that are given to us through this lineage to lift ourselves and lift others out of this endless sea of cyclic mistakenness. So really feel your reliance and your refuge on the enlightened beings who know how to advise you, what practices, what information, what do you exactly need to become an enlightened Buddha for the benefit of others. And develop some confidence that those means will be presented to you in your daily life and that you will find them, you will notice them, and you will put them in practice. Okay, now visualize you having sort of transformed into an extra special version of you, sitting here now about to hear teachings that are going to do that very thing. give you some of the resources you need to become enlightened. Take it away, Christopher.
Okay. I thought I'd like to start with the 9 rounds of breath the way Geshe Nima taught them. So what we want to do is breathe in through our right nostril, and we want to breathe in pure energy. And then we breathe out through the left. And when we breathe out, we're releasing all of our self-centeredness. We're letting our self-centeredness go. This is directly related to what we're going to be discussing today. So do this 3 times. Breathe in pure energy in the right nostril. Breathe out all self-centeredness with the left. Now we alternate. Through our left nostril, we're going to breathe in pure energy. And then out through our right nostril, we're going to breathe out all of our frustration and anger. Do that 3 times. Pure energy in the left, frustration and anger out the right. And then the last 3 rounds, we breathe in through both nostrils at the same time, breathing in pure energy. And then we breathe out, but we're breathing out. We imagine that our breath, as we breathe out, it goes up, comes out, and then goes out through the crown of our head. Okay. So what we're going to be breathing out is all of our misunderstanding, all of our misunderstanding. So 3 times breathing in through both nostrils, pure energy, and 3 times releasing misunderstanding through the crown of your head. So today's teachings are from Nagarjuna, and they're about non-duality, emptiness, selflessness, and so there's a room for a lot of misunderstanding there. And so we want to try and stay sharp. And also this self-centered attitude is what our problem is what the problem of the world is actually, the self-centered attitude. And the self-centered attitude always results in afflictive emotions. And that would be, the frustration, the anger, and the whole range of afflictive emotions. So we've sort of done a little work right there to release some of that. So I thought before we would start, we're doing, last week we did, what is world peace part 1, and this week it's going to be part 2. But I thought I would do a really handy dandy chat GPT recap of what we covered in the last session. So these are from sessions 48 and 49, a recap. What is the world and what is world peace, part 1. So in session 48, we asked, what is the world? And we explored how the world is understood both conventionally as a seemingly solid external reality, and in Mahayana Buddhism as being dependent, empty of inherent existence, and shaped by our consciousness. Nagarjuna and Maitreya's teachings showed that grasping at the world as inherently fixed blocks our liberation from suffering, while recognizing its dependent arising nature fosters clarity and compassion. Then in session 49 last week, wasn't that a nice quick recap? I mean, ChatGPT, you gotta love it, really. You give it the right prompts and it does wonderful things. All right. As long as it doesn't hallucinate, right? Well, a lot depends on what we ask it and how we ask it. In session 49, we turn to the question, what is world peace? Through the lens of His Holiness the Dalai Lama's essay, A Human Approach to World Peace, and the classic lojong text, The 8 Verses of Mind Training. The Dalai Lama's message was, to summarize it, was that modern progress brings material benefits, but leaves humanity plagued by fear, tension, and moral decline. True peace cannot come from treaties or institutions alone. It requires cultivating compassion, tolerance, ethics, and self-examination. Real happiness and lasting peace arise from inner development, not external gain. Then we talked about the 8 Verses of Mind Training, which is an 800-year-old text by Langri Tangpa, and it outlines practical methods for us to transform our self-centeredness into compassion and wisdom. So they're extremely valuable tools, mind training tools. The first 7 verses emphasize humility, patience, and altruism. For example, seeing difficult people as your teachers, or responding to harm when somebody's, harming us, we respond with compassion. This person is suffering for some reason. How can I help? It takes practice and it takes repetition of these verses of mind training and really contemplating them. So I really encourage everybody to spend some time with those. They're in the study guide and there are commentary on those as well. And you could even look at the video from last week because there was some really great discussion about the some of the misunderstandings that can arise due to the way we interpret some of those verses. The 8th verse highlights wisdom, warning against being trapped by the 8 worldly concerns, which are pleasure and pain, praise and blame, gain and loss, and fame and disrepute. So, or disrepute. What these 4 sets of attachments and aversions are it's sort of an outline of what causes us suffering. I mean, this is what causes us suffering. When we're concerned, we're running after pleasure all the time. We're running away from pain all the time. This generates extreme problems because we're avoiding things that we shouldn't actually be avoiding. We need to face certain things, and we need to not always be constantly going after pleasure, what's going to make me happy. But anyway, I won't go into those. I'm just saying all of those are outlining what causes our suffering, and so they're extremely helpful to memorize and recognize. So, as a summary from those 2 classes, is that world peace begins with inner transformation. By balancing material progress with the cultivation of human values, and by training the mind in compassion and wisdom, we contribute not only to our personal happiness, but to the peace of the world as a whole. Any comments about any of those past discussions we had? All makes sense? Sort of, yeah, okay. So now we're in part 2 of what is world peace. Nagarjuna, and I will say that Nagarjuna didn't frame this section of the text in terms of what is world peace, and all that. He didn't frame it that way, but because of current events, I decided to frame these teachings in light of our seemingly lack of world peace right now. And it fits perfectly. It actually does fit perfectly. It's exactly what he's talking about. So Nagarjuna continues his text by pointing out that much of the suffering in the world, if not all of it, comes from our habit of clinging to inherent existence. So we treat people, situations, institutions, and nations as if they had some kind of fixed, unchanging, independent identity. And we cling to that and we hold them to that. This rigid way of seeing things fuels conflict, fuels misunderstandings, and creates cycles of anger and revenge. And honestly, look at the history of the world. I mean, we know right now there's huge revenge on its way because of what has happened recently in, say, in the past year in the world. And it's just these cycles go around and around. And it comes from grasping at everything as if it inherently exists, and I am this way and you are that way, and I just need to get rid of you, basically, and then I'll be happy. And it never works. It never works. So Nagarjuna reminds us that nothing actually exists with a solid, unchanging core. When we recognize that nothing exists with a solid, unchanging core, we can approach others and the world with much greater flexibility and openness. By letting go of our rigid attachments and judgments, we open the door to greater peace and freedom in all of our relationships. So here is the verse from Nagarjuna where we're starting. It's verse 78. And it says, "O king," remember this is called Nagarjuna's advice to a king, and this was a king that Nagarjuna was very close to. It was one of his benefactors. "O king, lest you be ruined, I will explain through the scriptures the mode of the supramundane, just as it is, the reality not partaking of dualism." So supramundane, beyond the mundane world and the worldly concerns, we're talking about a reality not partaking of dualism. In other words, we're talking about a non-dualistic reality that Nagarjuna is about to go into. So Nagarjuna obviously has a close connection with the king who supports him. Out of compassion, he wants the king to understand the deep truth of emptiness, what emptiness is, what emptiness means. He explains a balanced way of seeing reality, one that avoids two very common pitfalls. The first is believing that things exist in some absolute permanent kind of way, or denying their existence altogether, which causes one to fall into a nihilistic view that nothing matters. If nothing actually exists, nothing matters. So these are these two extremes that we as humans can go to. We can see that in our relationships too. I mean, if we think we're saying everything depends on this wonderful, wonderful person, and then they're this, they're that, they're this, they're that, and they mean everything to me. And if they're not that way, if they don't fulfill that for you, then many of us can just fall into the depths of despair, deep depression, go into this nihilistic view of, oh, nothing matters. I think that's where we always see it. We see it in relationships. I mean, wars are nothing but relationships gone really awry in a big, big, big way. So again, I think it comes down to relationship. How do we actually exist, and how do we actually relate to and with one another? So relying on clear reasoning and sacred texts, Nagarjuna shows us the middle way between these two extremes. Madhyamaka or Marjamika. Madhyamika is one who is a practitioner of the Madhyamaka, middle way. So the middle way between these two extremes of absolute existing inherently the way it appears, or nothing exists at all, nihilism. Find that. It's like walking, Geshe Draper used to say, sort of like walking a tightrope and maintaining that perfect balance. So the middle way is a non-dualistic perspective that frees us from confusion, misunderstanding off the crown of your head, and endless cycles of dissatisfaction and frustration. So now we're going to talk about the need to reflect upon emptiness, the need to think about emptiness, what emptiness is. And this is verse 79. Anyway, before we go, were there any questions about the two extremes in the middle way and all of that? Does that make sense? Okay. 79. This profundity, endowed with meanings drawn from scriptures and beyond ill deeds and notorious deeds, has not been tasted by those who fear the baseless, meaning it has not those who fear emptiness, those who are afraid of emptiness, they haven't tasted this profound view that's beyond the extremes of good and bad, good deeds, ill deeds, all that kind of thing is beyond those. And these would be basically non-Buddhists. And even by our own, he says, even by other Buddhists who don't have the view, who are probably referring to those who are below the don't have the Madhyamika Prasangika view or the Yogacara or the mind only view, but some of the lower what they would call earlier schools of thought that don't have the view of emptiness actually at all. So so even Buddhists have this problem. So to move beyond cycles of suffering, whether it's in our own lives or in the world at large, we need to think deeply about emptiness. Understanding emptiness is the highest kind of freedom because it frees us from clinging to fixed ideas about ourselves, others, and the situations we encounter. Emptiness leads to freeing us from the clinging to fixed ideas about ourselves, about others, and about the situations that we encounter and are engaged in.
I want to say that fixed ideas is synonymous with wrong ideas.
Yeah, I mean, actually,
And so
yeah.
if it's more, I just noticed that it's more immediately impactful for me to think that understanding emptiness is attacking my wrong ideas.
But sometimes wrong and right
I know, I
trigger the wrong
inaccurate.
response.
How about diluted?
Diluted works, but
I like diluted.
but fixed means I'm not going to change it. I can't change this idea.
Yeah.
What we're getting is we can change. We can change the way we think about ourselves. We can change the way we think about of others. We can change the way we think about the entire world. We have that capacity, but we are habituated to holding on to our side, our fixed view. And this is how all of the problems in our relationships come out of this.
Yeah.
So
I mean, so your point is by using fixed,
it means that it can change.
it can change.
It can change. If we let go of the fixed hold, grasp, that's what they call that clinging, ego, self-grasping, clinging. Let go of it. Many people struggle with this idea because it feels really unsettling. After all, we've spent our whole life becoming fixed about certain things. And when we're told, no, you need to let go of that. You need to change how you think about that. That can be quite unsettling. It can be like feeling like, what am I stepping off a cliff here? You know, I'm not on solid ground anymore. It can feel that way. So many people struggle with the idea because it feels unsettling. If nothing has a fixed foundation, then does anything exist at all, really? If nothing whatsoever has a fixed foundation, does anything actually exist at all? That's where it goes to. That's where we find our lack of willingness to even look at this. Nagarjuna reassures us that yes, it does. Things do exist. Emptiness and interdependence go hand in hand. Nothing exists independently. Yet everything arises through causes and conditions. This is how life and society function. Nothing in our society actually exists independently. Nothing in our life actually exists independently. Everything in society and our life is interdependent. If all we have to do is think a little bit about it, and we'll go, well, yeah, that's actually true. But we don't feel that way. We don't feel interdependent. We feel separated and cut off and fixed in our own position. Even if we don't fully grasp this yet, simply trusting in the principle brings tremendous benefit. Just the idea that everything is interdependent. Just trusting in that. And we can trust. The way I trust in that is to look at the logic of it. And if you do look at the logic of it, you'll see right away, oh, of course everything is interdependent. This piece of paper, I mean, Thich Nhat Hanh has a really, really great little poem he wrote about there is a cloud. There is a cloud in this piece of paper. And if you're wise, you will see that cloud. If you understand what's going on, you will see the cloud in this blank piece of paper. And then he goes on to explain that if it weren't for the cloud, there couldn't be rain. If there weren't rain, the soil would not be moist. If the soil wasn't moist, the trees wouldn't grow. If there wasn't a tree, there wouldn't be paper. So there is a cloud in this paper. Everything is interconnected and interdependent. And I mean everything. There's not a thing that isn't, not a thought that isn't, not a object out there that isn't, not a smell or taste or touch. Everything is interconnected if we think about it. So that's logic. That's logic. And the logic will help us. It will help us go a long way in understanding what emptiness is talking about. So when we recognize the interdependent nature of life, we naturally become more patient, more compassionate, more understanding, naturally, more cooperative. I mean, cooperative goes hand in hand with interdependence. If we understood this, we would know that it was in our own worst interest to have a fight with somebody or to go to war with another country. We would do everything we possibly could to stop that from happening because it is not in our best interest, because we exist interdependently. It's science, it's logic. And yet, this samsaric mindset is illogical. This grasping at me, it's illogical. So, rather than feeling lost or discouraged by life, we can take heart knowing that embracing these teachings sets the foundation for both personal freedom and greater freedom. So, any comments about interdependence, the logic of interdependence?
Just thinking of how our opening refuge meditation and that just that this is proving the point in a way that if we look and ask the resources we need to break through our deluded, here we are.
Yeah.
You're saying it about as directly as possible. It's sort of like, here, if you take this medicine, you will get better. So, are we going to take the medicine?
Well,
I
that's
ask myself
interesting.
because I could talk for hours about the ways that I have not taken the medicine.
Well, it's why we're doing this.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because I think what it comes down to is because of this grasping that we have at ego, right? And which is Buddha said that all of this samsaric existence arose out of that very thing. Well, this is so primordial in us. It's like we don't want to let go of that. Even if we see the logic of interdependence, we go, but no, what about me? It takes a lot actually to
Yeah.
counter that. It feels innate, this innate grasping at me and mine, anything that is mine, that I consider mine, my family, my stuff, my life. Yeah.
I think I'll just share this a little bit. One of the reasons that I'm really hep on this topic of taking the medicine is yesterday I spoke to the niece of our I guess I'll use the term root guru, Geshe Drakpa. He passed away in 2017 or 16. In any case, we reminded each other about how hard he worked to give us the medicine. And I've thought from the beginning, especially after he passed away, like, let me take this medicine that he left with us, not only for my own benefit, but to have made it worth the enormous amount of hassle he went through to come to San Antonio and teach us.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot there, and I'll talk about it in other forums in more detail, but just sort of
Okay, so I guess we'll move on now then to verse 80 from Nagarjuna's text. And here he's describing what a person actually is. But as Buddhists often do, they describe it in terms of what a person isn't. So we can come to the conclusion of what is it? What is a person then? So here's verse 80. A person is not earth, not water, not fire, not wind, not space, not consciousness, and not all of them. What person is there other than these? So that's a really...
that comes right out of the Mahamudra.
Right.
The same
Absolutely.
exact text in the Mahamudra.
Yeah. Well, that's what Mahamudra is getting at. Mahamudra is getting that kind of Mahamudra meditation and practice is aimed at having us have a direct experience of emptiness. Really. Emptiness. Yeah. So this verse carries a very important message. Neither the person nor the aggregates that are the basis of the person, that is all of our sense consciousnesses, right? And then these other aggregates that they have of feeling, discrimination, conditioning, compositional factors, all of that kind of stuff. None of those actually are the person. So the aggregates aren't the basis of the person, nor are they the basis of the world, because he's also talking about phenomena here when he goes on. Nor the countless phenomena that are the basis of the world. None of those have the slightest existence from their own side. None of that. all of them are dependently co-arising. Again, interdependent, dependent, dependently co-arising. There isn't a thing. There isn't a thing in the universe that exists independently from its own side, self-contained, without depending on anything else or interacting with anything else. We won't find anything like that, because anything like that will not function, because it cannot connect. Something has to connect in order to function. It has to interact in order to function. That's a science also. That's logic. So I'll read that again. This verse carries an important message. Neither the person, nor the aggregates that are the basis of the person, nor the world, nor the countless phenomena that are the basis of the world have the slightest existence from their own side. Instead, they exist because we give them meaning through shared labels and conventions. Put simply, things don't have a fixed, independent existence, but they do exist in a practical, everyday sense. So, I mean, it's sort of obvious. We'll go back to the famous cup example. This cup has no existence from its own side. Everything that the cup is made of comes from other things, which are dependent arisings of other things and dependent arisings of other things. It also is designed by a conceptual mind. This is the result of thought, of concepts, of scientific principles and instruments that were created by humans, right? So nothing about this cup actually exists from the cup's own side independently as the cup. The cup can't say, I'm a cup. I existed always this way. It's impossible. If the cup existed that way, then it couldn't function. But yes, it functions because we can put a tea in it and drink it. And I love this cup. So it actually functions, right? And that's the way with all of us. We all function because we are connected and can interact, and we arise from other things and give to other things and connect with other things. We don't exist as this isolated little lone separated me. But the problem is we kind of think we do. We have a psychological feeling that we do. And all of the problems in the world arise from this. So in the 60 stanzas of reasoning, this is another text by Nagarjuna. Nagarjuna says, since the Buddhas have stated that the world is conditioned by ignorance, basically that's our ignorance, the world is conditioned by ignorance, why isn't it reasonable to assert that this world is a result of conceptualization? Read it again. Since the Buddhas have stated that the world is conditioned by ignorance, why isn't it reasonable to assert that this world is a result of conceptualization? If you look around, you'll see everything that you look at, you have a concept for. You project onto that thing all of the meaning that it has for you through your mind, through your concepts. And what Buddhism is saying, because of this, we actually generate a world that appears to us as truly existing the way we conceptualize it to be. But these, just as we went with the example of the cup, even though everything appears the way we have conceived it, everything appears to us as if it exists separately. There's a separate book, there's a separate wall, there's a separate shelf, there's a separate person, there's a separate everything. Even though it appears to be separate, it actually isn't. as we showed, as we pointed out with the cup does not exist as this separate thing. It's totally interconnected, actually, with everything. With everything. If you extend it out into the universe, you will find that every single thing you look at in your room is connected to every single thing in the universe in some way or form, if you follow it through. Again, this is science. We just don't see it that way. We do not see it that way. We see it, all these separate entities, isolated, fixed, solid, apart.
You know what's weird is that we continue to do that, just motivated by self-cherishing. It's so weird.
This
That's
is
the
exactly,
underlying-
boom, 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 boom. That's exactly what the Buddha said. This whole thing arose out of self-cherishing. So this is why it appears to us this way. It's showing the
Somehow it
power
serves
of our
us.
mind.
Somehow it serves us, you know, our little storyline we got going on. For us to be whatever, we need to have all these little separate
You
things.
don't have to think.
We think it serves us.
We
Right,
think, right.
Thank you.
We think what it's serving me. It's
Yeah.
serving me. And the grasping that we have at me. Look how sensitive we are. We're so sensitive. I mean, we had there was this really funny thing that happened at dinner last night. One guy said something about somebody else, and Don just said, "Well, I guess you just, criticized me there. Maybe I should just become a psychopath and kill you." A sociopath. I won't go into the details, but it was really funny to see how sensitive we all can be. Just the wrong little thing triggers the, oh, me, no, not me. You're not talking about me that way, right? Or mine, not my child. So it's that
No, I just
sensitivity.
did that. Well, I mean, one of the really funny things going on right now, and this is probably human 101, but all the conversations happening in all the ways they are right now, and everybody is talking. Everybody on every side of every flavor is talking as if their view is very balanced and correct. And it's rather hysterical because if you take the time to listen to quite diverse views, divergent views, polar opposite views, the attitudes, the wording, I mean, it's like identical. It's so freaky weird.
I'll tell you, I don't even waste my time looking at the news anymore because it's, to me, at this point, it's like the Tower of Babel.
Hey, I'm gonna read something right now while I'm thinking about it.
Okay.
This is from that Geshe Choda in I think he's in Charlotte, but he's a Gelugpa monk who's at a FPMT center here in the States, trained in India, speaks fluent English, and he writes these great emails. This is very short. This is his advice. Do not make life more miserable. Please don't fight over race, politics, culture. Please just leave them alone. What everyone wants is happiness. Nobody is content with the happiness they have, including yourself. There's no difference between me and you. So then why are there so many differences that people fight over? We humans are just making life more miserable. That's what we do, unfortunately. Again, we should not fight over religious belief, over culture, over politics. The last thing you should do is to make yourself upset. Instead, make yourself happy. The best way to do that is to help others. That's what we need. We need love, we need compassion, we need to be kind, we need to be respectful. And rejecting each other based on culture, religion, politics is not good. It does not make a better world. I like
So
that.
true. Yeah.
It's beautiful. When he said help others, if that's what he said,
Yeah.
I also think that is also make yourself useful.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
sort of
All
like
right. How do you help others?
Yeah.
But you're useful.
Be
So,
useful.
yeah. Be
Well,
useful.
Okay, now we have to be extremely self-aware that we're pretty much, unless we're enlightened, we just have to own that we're, I'm going to say this for myself, and I see it in the people I live with and that I know personally, that we're all doing exactly the thing that we are going that others are doing it. We're just doing our flavor of it, which for us is the correct flavor.
Yeah.
So it's really a mind-boggling practice. Anyway, I
Yeah.
just thought I'd share that at this moment.
So this is why we must really think about emptiness, what the Buddha is saying, because it is actually an understanding of this is the key to peace, is the key to happiness, really.
I wonder if a Buddha looks down on what's going on in our world, like we would go to a kindergarten play time and we see all this chaos happening and the kids struggling, wanting the, doing what they do, fighting over toys, being bullies, being nice, being all the, and then just, how could, you can't get sucked in. You just gotta,
Again, that's not being helpful.
what would be helpful? You just
Yeah.
find the way you can find the way you can add clarity, or at least not even that. Find the way that you can add harmony to the environment.
Okay.
That's my current.
That's good.
Let's find out.
Twist.
Yeah, I mean, you could.
What is clarity?
All right, suffering comes from self-grasping ignorance. According to the Buddha, suffering comes from ignorance, especially the habit of ignorantly clinging to a fixed, independent sense of I or me. This mistaken view fuels negative emotions, such as anger, fear, and pride, which in turn lead to actions that create more conflict and suffering. These patterns keep both individuals and communities trapped in cycles of harm. By seeing how clinging to a rigid sense of me drives our thoughts and our actions, we can begin to break these cycles. Recognizing our shared interdependence helps reduce conflict, it helps to cultivate compassion, and it helps to foster harmony. In this way, understanding the roots of ignorance is a key step toward both personal peace and a more peaceful world. We often assume that people, groups, or institutions or nations have an independent identity. But when we look closely, we'll see that they actually don't. For example, consider a university. It isn't a single permanent entity. It exists because of buildings, teachers, students, books, agreements. And if any of these parts change or if they disappear, the university as we know it would change also. The name and idea of university exist only because we collectively recognize and label it as such. It doesn't exist from its own side as university. We're the ones labeling it that way and deciding it that it's this or that. This is what the Buddha is saying is, why isn't it reasonable to assert that this world is a result of conceptualization? In the same way, neither our sense of self nor the people and situations we encounter exist independently. They exist conventionally as names, concepts, and roles that depend on many interrelated factors. To truly understand emptiness, we need to hold both of the following perspectives. First, nothing has a fixed, inherent core. Next, but everything still exists and functions through causes, conditions, and shared agreements. Seeing the world this way can help reduce conflict and tension allowing us to naturally become more open, compassionate, and cooperative. I'll read that again. To truly understand emptiness, we need to hold both of the following perspectives. Nothing has a fixed inherent core, yet everything still exists and functions through causes, conditions, and shared agreements. Again, saying that things don't exist inherently does not mean that they don't exist at all. It means that they don't exist inherently. Through names, concepts, and shared conventions. So let's take another example, like a sports team. A sports team isn't just one solid thing. It exists because of the players, the coach, the rules, the schedules, and everyone agreeing on the name of the sports team. For instance, Spurs. If any of these parts changed, the team Spurs, as we know it, would change also. The team Spurs is a dependent co-arising. It doesn't have any existence whatsoever from its own side. So you understand how, just take the example of a team. Look what we do. We label, for instance, the Spurs here in Texas, right? The Spurs, go. We'll get so riled up about this label, this idea, this concept, and that it has to do with me and this is my team, my city, my. And then we be so, we want the Spurs to win and we don't like the other team. Why? This is all conceptualization. Nothing of this exists from its own side inherently at all. And so we're doing the same thing with the world at large. My country, their country. Or, I root for that country and I hate that country. Or that leader. Love that leader, hate that leader. This is all conceptualization. It's going on all the time. And it creates more and more and more anger, more frustration, more conflict. Actually, nothing good. So the reason why we need to understand this, why we need to understand non-duality, interdependence, emptiness, is that it is actually going to be the thing that brings peace to us. And if it brings peace to us, then through extending that, we can bring peace to our friends, our family, our associates, anyone who we come in contact with, because we won't be operating under this delusional view of inherent self-existing me and mine. Does that all make sense?
Yeah, I was just picturing how funny it is that someone would claim to be working for world peace by entering into contentious debate about whatever, and at the expense of them spending time with their family to enjoy a meal and their, just going for a walk around the neighborhood or watching the grandkids play, but feel like their real work was to get out there and fight the good fight when,
Yeah,
one energy is that of harmonious love and contentment, and the other one is gotta fight the fight.
Well, maybe their families don't want to see him either, so.
Did you hear that? Brian says, I bet their families don't want to see them either.
Well, that happens. I mean, that's the irony of it, isn't it? I mean, that is the irony
Yeah, I
of
was
it.
thinking, Buddhism is the antidote to our society's ills. Which is why I've been, so interested for so many years in trying to figure out how to maximize the exposure of our society to Buddhist philosophy. But then there comes the question of how to break through with that in this world of complete ego and complete self-centeredness. Because first of all, Buddhism is hard, and it's hard to understand, and it's hard to practice. And I was saying, somebody came to me the other day, I don't know who it was, and said, we're talking about Buddhism. I said, oh, I'm a Buddhist. And um, so they said, you practice every day? I said, yeah, don't you? No. I said, yeah, well, I mean, I practice every day, not 3 days a week, not 4 days a week, but I practice every day. You have to have this commitment. But this has been my continual, what do you call it, conventional emotional frustration about how to get the understanding of Buddhist philosophy more in the general public than now, because now we just have people who are solely driven by ego and to the extent that they're willing to destroy society.
Well, we're doing it. This is what we're doing right
I
now.
mean, this is what we're attempting to do, yeah.
We can't, you don't expect to see change overnight.
And a lot of it is our own personal expression with others. That's where the rubber hits the road. How do we actually interact with everybody? Those in our
It's
family.
really admirable that you want to see in your lifetime the impact of your work in this
It's not
lifetime.
my work.
But I was just gonna say, you want to see the impact more pervasively, and that's how else can you do it by putting in your effort and being part of. It's hard to see the overall sea change that may or may that.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it.
You're correct. It does take practice, and it takes every day, and it
And
takes
it
years
is, it's
of it.
frustrating. And luckily, it's at least there seems to be a kind of a lot of scattered effort around the planet. People are not giving up.
What I can say personally,
The cup is half full.
is that I completely can see the change in myself over the past, whatever, 19 years of studying and practicing Buddhism. I can see how it has changed the way I think. It's changed the way I speak, how I act, everything. And what I find is that it makes my relationships with others far more easygoing and pleasant.
Well, I think that's all fine. I mean, but there's 4 million Buddhists in the world.
Right.
I mean, we're not increasing the numbers quick enough to counteract the numbers.
One of the things I always say about this is that a lot of people they'll believe in God, or they'll believe in or they'll say Buddha. And I often say, well, if Buddha could have done it, or if Jesus could have done it, it would have been done already, wouldn't it? We wouldn't be experiencing all the shit that's going on in the world. If God could have done something about it, God would have, right?
I'm not sure that's the interpretation of people who believe in God.
Right, because you have to come up with interpretations that are actually illogical.
I think they have an excuse for why God lets the world exist as it does.
But an all-loving Father, if you want to put it that way, would not do that. Would not allow that to go on. So you have to question then the whole view of a separate thing out there that is all powerful.
Anybody out there in Zoomland have their 2 cents they want to add to this, Lee? I see you unmuted yourself.
That was an accident, but I would say, the suffering, we want it all to end, but I have to say that sometimes when I've done the most spiritual growth is during the suffering that I've had to experience.
Yeah.
So as like to your comment about would an all-loving father allow something to happen? Sometimes the best parenting is to allow your child to go through suffering so that they can come out on the other side of that, having learned the lesson. So I don't know, parenting is a hard, I wouldn't wish it on anybody.
Well, right, and you have to take a really long view of it all too.
Yeah, it could take eons. Brian, that's what I was thinking when we want to see peace now, but it could be eons. And I think our whole concept of time is skewed to begin with because it's what we think it is when, does it even really exist?
Mm-hmm. Good point. I
Let me
thought the same thing. Yeah.
Let me just add something. So, I mean, religions often also sort of justify that this is a test that you have to go through. And so, I mean, you can pretty much justify anything. You just, I mean, so there is not a really good answer that God would just make peace everywhere. I mean, then you just say if there's no peace, well, it's our it's something we have to sort of suffer through to be tested in our beliefs or whatever.
Mm. Right, right. I mean, I've gone through those kinds of that kind of analysis myself, Claudia, and sort of.
Interestingly, this is exactly the topic Christopher is addressing. Is so this peace that we are talking about and looking for, and frustrated that it's not appearing to us. I think this is, that's my interpretation of why Christopher has addressed the topic, what is world peace? So that perhaps we would see a different,
Yeah.
I don't know.
But we haven't finished.
But wait, there's more.
So this is the very essence of what is called the middle way or the Madhyamaka teachings.
Amina.
So this is the very essence of the middle way teachings. Emptiness and dependent arising go together, hand in hand. Emptiness and dependent arising go together. People and things.
They're inseparable. One is dependent on the other. Okay, go ahead.
People and things have no fixed, independent core. People and things, self and phenomena, have no fixed or independent core. Yet they exist in a functional, everyday sense because they depend on causes, conditions, and our naming of them. What we say they are. This balance can be really tricky to grasp, which is why Buddhist texts repeat it over and over. Emptiness helps us avoid clinging to things as permanent, while dependent arising helps us see how things still appear and function in the world. So that's to keep clear in your head. Those two are basically inseparable. Emptiness and dependent arising. You might say like they're two sides of the same coin. So think of it that way. Now we're going to go into an even more mind-blowing topic, very difficult to wrap our thoughts around, which is the non-duality. The non-duality of dependent co-arising and emptiness. Nagarjuna wrote in his, let me see if I can say this, Mula Madhyamaka Karika. Mula Madhyamaka Karika. So you hear Madhyamaka's in there, right? Middle way, something about the middle way. It means the fundamental wisdom of the middle way. And this is one of the central lines from that text. This is a line that Geshe Drakpa told Kapita and I memorized this line. Have it with you always. Whatever is dependently co-arisen, that is explained to be emptiness. That, being a dependent designation, is itself the middle way. Something that is not dependently co-arisen, such a thing does not exist. Therefore, a non-empty thing does not exist. I'll read it one more time. Whatever is dependently co-arisen, that is explained to be emptiness. That, being a dependent designation, is itself the middle way. Something that is not dependently co-arisen, such a thing does not exist. Therefore, a non-empty thing does not exist. So this is pointing to the non-duality of Dependent co-arising and emptiness. Non-duality means it's not two. It's not two things. Dependent co-arising, and emptiness. The non-dual nature of dependent co-arising and emptiness is famously stated in this stanza from the Heart Sutra that's known almost by all Buddhists. Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form is not other than emptiness. Since form, in its nature, is a dependent co-arising. Another way to say this stanza could be, dependent co-arising is emptiness. Emptiness is dependent co-arising. Emptiness is not other than dependent co-arising. Dependent co-arising is not other than emptiness. And if you think about it, if you think about the logic of that, that is actually true. Form, no matter what it is, if it's a smell, taste, a touch, hearing, sound, all of it, you will not find any form that does not dependently co-arise from something else. You will not find it. It doesn't exist. Think about it. I mean, you have to think about this for yourself in order for you to come to a conclusion where you go, you know what, that's true. That is true. But don't take my word for it, and don't take the Buddha's word for it, and don't take Nagarjuna's word for it. Logic it through in your own mind till you are sure that is true. Only then will you really put some juice into your practice and realize, my God, this is what I really need to be doing in order to be happy, in order for my friends to be happy, in order to even see world peace. I need to understand this. I need to practice this. But don't take anybody's word for it. Well, you wouldn't go around all day saying that to people.
That's straight jacket.
Yeah, they lock you away.
Said you're full of emptiness.
Well, yeah, and if you don't understand what emptiness means, then
Exactly.
Emptiness is not nothingness. Okay, so now we're going to talk about dualistic notions versus non-duality. Before we go on, any comments about dependent arising and emptiness being basically two sides of the same coin? Does that make sense?
It's rarely said this way in our lineage. I'm just going to share this, and this is probably where you're going with the non-dual thing, but after contemplating these things, and almost thinking about this in the way what you would use the term new agey kind of thinking, but our consciousness is going to have some appearance arising to it. This is, the underlying what this is telling us, because things are empty, and then you get into more of the nuts and bolts of, well, then what's appearing to me? I mean, if you just have to really let yourself begin to own your appearance, what's appearing to you as your karmic appearance. And I mean, I don't know how else to say it, but this really is so, and one can start to get a hint of the issue that one is having, from my own experience. When you hear yourself thinking and talking about external stimulus, seemingly external appearances, and projecting out onto them the things that are disturbing or whatevering, this reel it back in. It's all, this is what this is telling us.
It is a dependent co-arising with your own mind and the object, the form, you might want to say, that's appearing to the mind. And so when we, if we understand, when we throw out these vile, angry, condemning thoughts, what actually we're doing is we're poisoning our own mind. We're poisoning our own. We're not getting rid of it. We're not somehow getting it out and getting it out of our system. We're actually creating more imprints within our consciousness of those kinds of habitual ways of responding and looking at the world. There's another way to look at things. We don't have to look at things out of this condemning, angry view.
Mhm.
We can look at it with huge compassion and wisdom, but it takes a lot to do that. It takes a lot of mind training and understanding of what the problem actually is in order to be able to do that. So we'll go on now. Dualistic notions versus non-duality. At first, the idea of non-duality can seem more than a little odd to us, or even illogical, because our minds naturally divide the world into categories. We do this all the time, categories of words and concepts. We know we do this. So the teaching is saying, the teaching that says everything is non-dual challenges this habit that we have of separating everything. We're used to thinking in terms of opposites, aren't we? We're used to thinking in terms of us and them, right and wrong, good and bad, male and female, young and old. These divisions seem obvious. And in daily life, we do experience these differences. You know, day and night, friend and enemy, one kind of food and another kind of food. But non-duality reminds us that these opposites don't exist as fixed or absolute. They arise in relation to one another. Young arises in relation to old. Right arises in relation to wrong. Male arises in relation to female. That's the first getting your foot in the door. Non-duality actually points to the underlying interconnectedness of everything in our experience. Without pain, we would not be able to recognize pleasure. This is going to, a little to what you said, Lee, you know, when you were talking about God. Without pain, and this is true, without pain, we wouldn't actually recognize pleasure. If we had nothing but pleasure and nothing to compare it to, we would just go, bleh. We wouldn't even think it was a big deal. We just think, we wouldn't, I don't even know what we'd call it. We would just assume, we'd make an assumption. It would be like breathing the air or something. But because we have this thing that we can compare it to, we can see that there's an interconnected relationship between pain and pleasure. Without noise, we wouldn't appreciate silence. Without the dark, we wouldn't even understand light. Opposites help us understand and give meaning to everything. Opposites help us understand and give meaning to everything. Science shows that at the deepest level, everything is energy. And many spiritual traditions point to the same truth in different ways, that all of life is connected. Non-duality takes this further by saying we actually never have been truly separate. We actually never have been truly separate. The divisions we see between ourselves and others, between one group and another, are creations of the mind. We can change how we look at it. We really can. When we have the wisdom consciousness that realizes there is no self that is actually disconnected from everything, we begin to see that the walls we build between me and you and us and them are illusory in nature. This understanding dissolves the roots of conflict and makes space for compassion, cooperation, and peace, both within us and in the wider world. This is a lot to wrap our self-grasping conceptual mind around, because it goes against almost everything we're habituated to. So we have to revisit this. We have to keep thinking about it. I keep saying we need to talk a lot about non-duality, and we need to become familiar with it, because it is said in the writings, scriptures, that the final realization that one has before achieving actual enlightenment as a Buddha is the direct experiential realization of non-duality. Emptiness comes before that, but this actual, the subtlety of what non-duality is must be directly experienced. And so we just need to start thinking about it to begin with. Just think about it. You may not even agree with it. Just sort of think about it and noodle it over and become a little familiar with the concept. So I'm closing this now with two different yet related perspectives on what is world peace. From the perspective of ordinary human beings, like us and like everybody else we see in the world and everybody out there on internet land, world peace conventionally refers to an ideal state of harmony among all nations and peoples. This will sound very familiar to all of us. It encompasses the absence of war, violence, and conflict, promoting freedom, happiness, and cooperation globally. Various organizations and initiatives work towards achieving world peace. It is a very complex goal that requires cooperation, understanding, action from individuals, communities, and nations. Through various theories and efforts, the vision of a peaceful world remains a shared aspiration. So world peace hasn't occurred. And if you look throughout history, world peace hasn't occurred. What the Buddhist teachings will tell us is that a world that arises out of self-cherishing, self-grasping, thinking I'm an inherently existing fixed me, that world will never have peace, because it is founded on a mistaken view. So what we actually need to be doing here is changing our view. So here's the second perspective. And there's nothing wrong with that first one. It's very noble, but it has never worked. It continues to not work and remains a shared aspiration. So here's a second perspective. From the perspective of Mahayana Buddhism, world peace is the resultant experience of wisdom consciousness, a state of mind that is other-centered and compassionate. Other-centered behavior manifests as altruism. where beings act out of a genuine desire to help and benefit one another. Compassion drives this selfless behavior. Compassionate beings engage in supportive actions and methods which foster strong relationships based on trust and understanding. Wisdom consciousness stabilizes compassionate activity because it encompasses the ability to make sound judgments and decisions based on knowledge, experience, and a profound realization of the nature of reality. This is the realization of the non-dual, interpenetrative nature of self and other, and nature that is empty of being independent, self-sufficient, and inherently fixed. This realization liberates us from the self-centered grasping that is the root of all suffering and delusions in the world. One who has this kind of fully awakened heart and mind will realize peace and will never, ever give up on helping others to realize it as well. As His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama has said, no matter what is going on, never give up. Develop the heart. Be compassionate, not just to your friends, but to everyone. Be compassionate. Work for peace in your heart and in the world. Work for peace. And I say again, never give up. No matter what is happening, no matter what is going on around you, never give up. And I want to close with the words of the great Shantideva. As long as space remains, and as long as sentient beings remain, may I too remain to dispel the suffering of all sentient beings. So, these are two different kinds of views of what world peace can be. One view is trying to fix it from the outer, trying to make it happen. And the other is actually becoming it. And I think what we need to do is become it. And yes, it's one person at a time, Brian. I mean, I don't think we're going to see, Buddhism sometimes talks about, I've seen in some of the teachings and actually some of the prayers that I do on a regular basis, they talk about mass enlightenment. And it could be something like the 100th monkey effect, when enough consciousnesses get this realization of what actually is going on, well, everybody else just sort of follows in with it like a wave of energy. That's perhaps possible. I don't know. But all I know is we actually have to start ourselves. We have to start with ourselves, with our own mind, with our own friends and family and behavior, thoughts, speech, actions. Yeah.
I sent Kavita both of you this morning. I think it was at the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times. I think it was Wall Street Journal. So it was an article on this Tibetan who, was a Buddhist, not a monk, but a Buddhist. And his, many year struggle to continue to practice his Buddhist principles in the face of the Chinese takeover of Tibet. And, he lived quite a difficult life, quite an arduous life, escaping into the mountains. I mean, basically his crime was he burned a poster of Mao that the Chinese government had given him, and somebody ratted on him. So they arrested him, kept him in jail for a few years, tortured him. He got out, and then he lived in the mountains in Tibet for 5 or 6 years. slowly made his way back to see his mother. He had a wife and 4 kids that he had to leave. And ended up in Dharamsala after about 20 years. And now is living in Dharamsala as a cook or a restaurateur or whatever. But, remained committed to the Buddhist principles and the Buddhist philosophy, and could have easily said, no, I don't believe in that anymore. And, because he was getting stuffing kicked out of him, I guess is one word.
Yeah.
And at the same time, in the New York Times today, there was an article on these 2 high school kids who live in Manhattan. And they have become very popular because what they do is they filmed their day living in the world of New York City, and they post it online. And the indulgence, the unbelievable, well, I get up and then, I have this very, breakfast prepared by my servants. Then I go to this private school and I take a taxi or Uber to get there. Then I walk to this restaurant for sushi for lunch. Then I go back to school. Then I, go shopping. And it's like just this completely diametrically opposed
Yeah.
situation. And the ones who are and these are teenagers, it must be 15, 16 years old, who have all these followers now on TikTok from all over the world, because this is what people see as a good life and a happy life.
Right. So you can see where we're at. When His Holiness says never give up, he knows what he's talking about because he went through all of that.
Well, I mean, the sort of Winston Churchill, he said, when you're going through hell, keep going. And he said, never give up, never give up.
No, but when you talk like what that guy went through with the
Yeah,
Chinese in
yeah.
Tibet, this happened with huge numbers of
Yeah,
Tibetans,
yeah.
and thousands of them died just escaping in the jungles, So for him to say never give up no matter what is going on, he's speaking from actual experience, not just just not a nice thing to say because it sounds good. It's actual experience. He knows what suffering is. I mean, he really does. I mean, I've seen him many times just break down in tears when he talks about his people and what happened in Tibet. It's not that he doesn't hurt,
Well, I mean, if you give up, you never actually get any person.
Right.
You just have to keep going.
So that's basically, our charge is to keep going, to keep up with this practice, to keep getting deeper and deeper and deeper into our understanding of the nature of who we are. And that will actually lead to a very, very stable and wise mind.
That's what I consider, Kavita, back to your phrase, fighting the good fight. To me, that's what fighting the good fight is.
Yeah.
Never giving up.
Right. Yeah. But this is, the good fight. The good fight is one where we actually aren't hurting others.
Right.
We're healing and helping and connecting and accepting and finding ways to make it all work.
Right.
So that's our task, and it's actually a very happy one, really. If you get yourself behind it, you feel like you actually can do something, and not be brought down, by everything that's going on. I would say, yes, it's important to know what's going on in the world, but don't get so absorbed in it that it becomes addictive that you can't help but turn to it, because then it really is going to shape your mind and how you think. It's good to be aware of what's going on, definitely. We can't have our head in the sands, but we need to maintain the proper balance of that so that we can continue with a path that is that's really going to help us develop into wonderful beings that can be of benefit to others. So, closing prayers.
Yeah, similar to our opening. We're taught almost at the beginning of our Buddhist path, one of the mind training slogans is, in between meditation sessions, see everything that appears to your consciousness, everything you read, everything you hear, everything you think, see it as a dream. Between meditation sessions, see the quote world as a dream. When you return to your meditation session, then you analyze, why did I dream that? Why do I keep externalizing these afflictive situations, putting them out there in this dream called samsara? So make a commitment as we end this class, this therapy session for how to transform from the inside out. May our little bit of understanding not decline, but may it grow. May it grow so that we really can feel the truth of what's being said here about the non-dual nature of appearances and our consciousness. Consciousness and appearance, consciousness and appearance. So, always imbued with bodhicitta. So may the precious mind of bodhicitta that is not yet born within us, that fervent commitment to attaining wisdom and enlightenment, to actually get it, the work it takes to actually get it, may that wish to get it for the benefit of others so that we can effectively become part of the solution of samsara. May that wish, bodhicitta, that's not yet ignited in us, may it be ignited and grow. And grow and grow and grow based on our understanding of non-duality and emptiness. May our view and our understanding of emptiness, that which we have and that which we're yet to get, that emptiness insight within us, may that ignite and grow and never decrease, but continue to grow all the way until we ourselves achieve a complete breakthrough of enlightenment and liberation. That's the long haul. In the meantime, as we hold those two intentions, to remember, in between our study, in between our meditation, in between formal practice, may we see everything arising to our consciousness as if a dream. That's the instruction from the Buddhas.
Basically an appearance to our consciousness.
Amen. Hallelujah.
Amen. Hallelujah. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, everybody. So nice to have you here.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Hey, Lee.
Yes,
I have
ma'am.
a random question. Don't.
I'm gonna wait.
Are there sufficient Buddhist teachings for hearing, for people with no hearing or that rely on sign for oral transmissions?
I would say it depends on where you live, but in general, I don't think it would be an overstatement that the basic answer to that question is no.
Yeah.
There's not enough. There's not enough.
Yeah.
Well,
I
let's
mean,
talk about
I've never seen an interpreter sign anything having.
let's talk about
Does that
that.
mean that it doesn't exist?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll talk offline because I think maybe there's something.
Maybe there is something that can be done about that.
All right.
Yeah.
Hey, Arthur, looking good.
Yay, Arthur. Yeah, you are looking good, dude.
In it for the long haul.
Okay, we're all in it for the long
It's literally in it for the long haul.
Yes.
And we had no wake up interventions this week. I did not.
Okay, so I will now stop our recording.